Hello, and welcome back to Take It or Leave It Commentaries. Today we're going to be continuing our look at the Dallas Pilot miniseries. Today's episode is the fourth episode of the five-episode miniseries. It's called Winds of Vengeance. I am watching this on Amazon Prime. If you have your own copy on Amazon Prime or DVD or maybe even an old VHS and you want to follow along, you can start your copy right now. And this, of course, opens with the same same opening sequence that we've gotten used to here with the miniseries episodes. Very similar to what we get in the rest of the series, or at least for most of it, except for the same differences we've talked about before. The people missing from the credits, and of course the different South Fork house, which is the box ranch. This episode, we'll start talking about it even as the credits are going on here, is really stands out almost like the second episode of this mini series is something that I just don't think you'd see anything like this later in the show, mainly because it shows JR in a very vulnerable position. This is, of course, before JR was the centerpiece of the show. But as the series went on, the idea of JR being very powerful and having a lot of pride and the audience seeing him as a very strong character, um, this just would not have gone over well, in my opinion. JR has just a lot of weak moments in this episode, for lack of a better term. And you'll see those as the episode kind of goes on when he's being held captive. The main thing that's interesting about this episode and the other early episodes of the series is this is when JR and Ray are actually really good buddies. They go out and drink together, chase women together, scheme together. Of course, it's an issue in the first episode that if JR had any idea what Ray was up to with Lucy, uh, Ray's life would basically be in danger, not so much from JR, but from Jock. I love JR's old Mercedes there. It's funny the fact that Ray's driving him as if he's also JR's chauffeur, or maybe Ray's just not as hungover as JR, but I do love that classic Mercedes. Not sure I'd pick green, but it's still it's still interesting to see that. I like JR's character the best when he drove those big Mercedes sedans. He had a few of them over the years, mostly in a tan color that I thought really fit his character well. Later on, he changed to a Cadillac Alante, which kind of went along with his notion of wanting to buy American and wanting to get back at the Saudis and any kind of foreign country. So he gave up his Mercedes and went with an American made car. But always preferred him in his big Mercedes sedans. Here, of course, our antagonist for the episode, uh, the main character here is named Luther, and you'll recognize him if you've seen probably any movie in your life, especially one from the 80s or 90s. You'll recognize him as Brian Dennehy. His credits just go on and on and on. He was in First Blood, Cocoon. He actually also appeared in I believe it was the first season of Dynasty. He's in Presumed Innocent, Silverado, just on and on and on. I actually saw him twice at the same restaurant on two different trips in New York City. I didn't go up and try to bother him or talk to him or anything, but I actually saw him in person. He passed away a few years ago, but he's a great actor. just able to fit into any kind of character, whether it's good or bad or somewhere in between, or even an alien like he plays in Cocoon. He even manages to pull that off. The other character we meet here is Cooper. He's played by Peyton Allen. The main thing I think people might remember him from is Urban Cowboy. He plays the kind of best friend of John Travolta's character Bud. His name in Urban Cowboy is Marshall, but he appears in lots of other movies and TV shows. He's got a lot of credits: Foul Play, ER, Walker Texas Ranger, even Django Unchained. There's also several scenes in the miniseries that are like this one where they show the characters in a vehicle traveling, and there were some of those in the series itself, but not many. And when you did see them, they were typically in convertibles, obviously because it's much easier to film a scene if you're going to film it in a car with a convertible, because you got more room and you can actually see the characters without jamming a camera into the inside of a car. But there's quite a few of them in the miniseries, and it's a little unusual. Of course, the miniseries starts off, the entire Dallas series starts off with Pam and Bobby on their way to South Fork in Bobby's red Mercedes. Wow, that's an odd angle for that shot. Looking down on Miss Ellie, it looks like Sue Ellen's looming above her. What a strange way to open that scene. It may be because this is filmed, in, of course, in the Aldridge house, like the rest of the first five episodes. Because, as I mentioned earlier, they're not going to build a full set just for a mini series that they don't know is actually going to be picked up for a series. But so they may have had to just stick a camera in an odd place. But it looked as if Sue Ellen was about to hand Miss Ellie some strychnine or something. Just an odd angle. I think Miss Ellie's kind of minimizing JR's aversion to Pam and other things in his life by saying JR just simply doesn't like change. It's a little more complicated than that. Wow, Miss Ellie's really suffering here. This is a very unusual scene that actually shows Sue Ellen caring for Miss Ellie as if she's a caregiver and handing her medication. That's that's another way this episode is different in that we did not see Miss Ellie as a weak character like that who would just be laying in bed with a terrible headache or migraine. But obviously here they're still kind of fleshing out the characters and figuring out what makes the show work. Yeah, so well, no, it's not really what's holding up JR. It's not weather related. This is more in the Aldridge house, of course. That little interplay right there between Pam and Lucy is a little unusual. In the second episode, it kind of sets up that now Pam and Lucy have a very close relationship, or at least are working toward that. But right there, Lucy pretty much just treats her like she treats the rest of the family. And look at that huge stereo that takes up the entire section of wall there. It's one of those things where the actual record player is down inside along with the speakers and stuff. My father's parents had a piece like that that I think was even larger. They didn't mention weather much either as the series went on. The only episode or episodes I can remember in the rest of the series where weather played any kind of a role was the big storm at JR and Callie's wedding. I don't remember there being any kind of weather event after that had any effect on the storyline. If I'm forgetting something, let me know in the comments. But I nothing pops in my head at the moment. It's the This is the late '70s. Of course, people are still wearing the really wide tie knots, which is a look I've never cared for. Oh, sorry about that. One of my dogs has spotted someone that had the audacity to actually walk by the house. We see a good bit too, and this goes for the next episode as well. We actually see a good bit of the outside of the box ranch, which for the first few episodes, mostly what we saw was just a few shots over there by the side entrance, but we get a pretty good look at it there. And look at that refrigerator. JR, of course, gets a beer. That's another unusual characteristic for him at the time. I mean, JR did drink some beer later in the series, but not very often. And I'm not sure this kitchen is in the Aldridge house. If you look at it, it looks like the kitchen might actually be in the box ranch. There were apparently a few scenes that were filmed on the interior of the box ranch, and I've never really found a reference to what those scenes were, but I think that kitchen scene we just saw is a good candidate for something that was filled at the actually filmed inside the box ranch. And there in the background, you can actually see the house that used to be Gary's apparently, and next to it, the house that serves as Jr. and Sue Ellen's residence. They really need to be more careful about just opening the door at a place like that just because someone knocks. Kind of asking for trouble. Lucy wearing her boots. I think that's funny, and I think it's great too that Lucy's completely in character there, already flirting with the random guy that shows up at the door. Brian Dennehy, and I guess this is part of what makes him such a great character actor, would have fit in on the show as a regular character. But he could fit into to a lot of things, obviously. But he seems perfectly at home in this environment. Could have turned up as another Barnes relative or something like that, or maybe could have played the Carter McKay role. Of course, by then then he may not have been interested in a television role. He had a great career in film, so he may have had other things on his plate. Well, Cooper's really layered up. He's got at least three layers of shirts and jackets that we can see. It must truly be cold. Of course, Dennehy does too, or Luther Frick. What a name! Oh, my dog again in the background. Uh, really light up when they see, well, not Brian Dennehy so much, but Cooper's eyes really lit up when he saw Pam, which I don't blame him. Oh, look at that old radio. That is awesome. I've mentioned before, I'm not sure where they filmed these scenes for the interior of the Ewing oil offices. It's a real location somewhere, but I don't know where. Boy, Bobby with the pink shirt and the pale blue suit. That is an interesting look. And I'm not sure that seems looks like it's already a different secretary than Bobby had in the first episode or two or three. I didn't get a good look at her, but or maybe that's just supposed to be Julie Gray's replacement. Very unusual here that JR does just trust these two people that have shown up. The JR the rest of the series was suspicious of everyone, especially strangers and especially strangers that show up at South Fork. Luther and Cooper are certainly taking their sweet time and getting on with their little revenge plot. I'm not sure what the purpose of this big delay is and why they're continuing to act like they're actually going to help somebody. And I don't know for a fact, but I feel fairly confident in saying these are actually horses from the Box Ranch, and that's a barn from the actual ranch. That's one reason that the Box family did not want the series to continue filming there because it was a working ranch. You know, they kind of felt the film crew not only disrupted privacy, but were in the way of the ranch's actual day to day business, which was ranching. And these are really some unnecessary filler scenes. I don't know if it's intended just to take up time or just to show some actual ranching going on at South Fork, but none of what you see going on here has anything to do with the rest of the episode's story. So it's a little uninteresting. They're doing a good job showing that horse really getting blown around. Oh, oh, well, they've got an injury to deal with. It was always nice in the series to have different times and different stories, kind of like we're seeing now, where the family really does work together. They're so often at odds that I remember it was exciting when suddenly they would all need to kind of close ranks and try to help each other. There were a few instances of that. One was the Ewing barbecue where the rest of the oil community wants to confront JR about his gas stations. That was during the battle for Ewing oil storyline. And then when they finally realized what Clayton Farlow's sister Jessica was up to as far as, wanting to hurt or kill Miss Ellie to stop the wedding, they instantly just kind of became a team and went to handle the problem. And here we go with Miss Ellie again lying on many pillows. She looks as uncomfortable as a human being can possibly be. It could be that they simply wanted her not to be involved in the hostage situation kind of coming up. And this was a convenient way maybe to, I don't know, just try to not have her as directly involved or something. I don't know. Just an odd choice to have Miss Ellie sick during all this with no apparent reason. And Lucy, boy, she's really got her cowboy outfit on there. You don't didn't see that very often. Okay, now that the kidnappers have done some work helping everyone secure the ranch, now they're going to actually follow through on their plot. Again, this seems like odd timing, but and maybe the purpose of all those scenes was simply to get Ray a little bit incapacitated, so he made an easier kidnapping victim. And as the episode goes on, and you can see it already right there with Cooper laughing, it starts becoming more and more clear that Cooper is much more of a loose cannon and much more dangerous than Luther. He seems to have a couple of screws loose. Back when people had home phones that could ring. It is telling there that Lucy is clinging to Pam and not Sue Ellen, who was intended to be more of a mother figure toward her. But Lucy, she does demonstrate there that she trusts Pam, uh, certainly more than Sue Ellen. You mean Ray Krebs hurt his knee? You mean Ray Krebs, your old boyfriend? Why are you aware of this, and why are you so concerned about it, and why should I be so concerned? That was very smart on Pam's part, actually. That little thing about her and JR sitting down to backgammon. I mean, she knows how ridiculous that would sound. It's a great tip off. Oh, and you know what? I didn't pick up on that before. JR, I mean, excuse me, Jock just mentioned Punk. He's obviously talking about Punk Anderson, who won't actually appear on the series for quite a while, but he's they've already brought him up. And this is what I was talking about earlier about showing Jr. In a very weakened state, and we saw him over the course of the series have some very down moments, and certainly plenty of moments where he was in danger and even scared, but not any I can think of where it showed him um, weak like this kind of does. He always, no matter what was going on, Jr. always kind of kept his wits for the most part, and there was still a sense of confidence, I guess, about him. But here, um, we just don't see that. It's also really uncomfortable knowing the characters like we do from the rest of the series to show Sue Ellen and Jr. Even though you might think he deserves it, but to be humiliated like this in front of the rest of the family, it's It's not it's not something that's fun to watch necessarily. And it gets worse as it goes on. Once they start doing the singing and all that, it's you really feel for. They, I noticed that, and it happened so fast. I'm not sure about this, but I think Ray is there holding his hurt knee, but I think Brian Dennehy's character, I think he hit him on his other knee. But see, and here we go again. I mean, Cooper just comes across here as a maniac. Now, Maselli, wouldn't she have been able to tell by the sounds those people were making that whatever was going on wasn't something she just needed to walk right into? Is that why is Bobby wearing a purple coat? Or is that just the way it looks in the lighting? Man, I don't know. It looks purple. Is he turning into the Joker? I thought at first he had on his brown leather jacket, but I don't think that's what that is. It genuinely looks like a purple coat. And here's the kitchen again, and like I said, this could certainly be inside the actual box ranch. It doesn't, and I say that mainly because the decor doesn't seem to match the rest of the Aldrich house. There's not, of course, it's a kitchen, so you wouldn't necessarily, especially at that time, see a lot of dark wood, but it's it's so dramatically different that that's what makes me think it might be the box ranch. That's a really large refrigerator. Well, if you're planning that, I mean, why not get on with it? I don't understand all this delay. And up until now, we haven't really seen much of Sue Ellen. Linda Gray has some fairly significant scenes in the first few episodes of the miniseries, but not one where she kind of takes center stage the way she does here. She has some more scenes in the last episode of the miniseries, the barbecue episode, where the effects of what happens here and just her life with JR overall is really starting to take a toll. But but until now we haven't really seen that much of her. I think her probably Sue Ellen's most significant scene before this episode was the was in the last episode, Spy in the House, where she's in the house that she shares with JR, and she's showing him that she's bought some lingerie at the store, and her and JR kind of have a big blow up about the state of their marriage. But we start to learn a little bit more about her and get more of a feeling for her character in this episode, and then the following finale of the miniseries. Wow, I'd forgotten that Lucy kind of throws Pam under the bus like that. Wow, that's pretty cold. I don't think you would have seen that later in the series with unless unless it was JR. I don't think one of the other members of the family, including Lucy, would throw somebody to the wolves like that. And here again, if what Luther is really wanting is to take revenge on JR by having sex with Sue Ellen, why didn't you do it when they were just over in JR and Sue Ellen's house? What's the point of all this bringing her back here and having her perform for the whole family? I mean, I guess you could say obviously to humiliate JR and Sue Ellen and the rest of the family, but they're they're really taking their time getting to their real purpose in being here. It might have actually been better here, and I understand where they were coming from at the time this was written to have JR present for this, but it might have actually been better for the character if they had somehow just incapacitated JR and knocked him unconscious or even shot him. So you don't have to see him helpless here while this is going on. Because I mean, this is really pretty brutal to humiliate Sue Ellen like this. And Linda Gray, by the way, does a great job. Really pulls off what I'm sure was a very, very difficult scene here when they take off the coat and she has to sing. Now, see, okay, well, it's not a purple coat. There, I mean, Bobby actually does have his Richie Aprile brown leather jacket on. Really, it's too bad that Jock and Bobby couldn't have arrived before she actually has to do this. And I know I mentioned it earlier, but this is something I can't imagine would ever have happened later on in the series. This is just way too much for the Ewings to be shown in such a vulnerable position. I mean, they were certainly vulnerable at times with different dangers. I mean, people like B.D. Calhoun or Catherine Wentworth or Jessica Farlow and several others you could name that posed a physical danger. But most of what you saw, as far as when the family might have been in really bad trouble and really helpless, was more related to something involving the business. I mean, like with JR with the Asian oil leases and mortgaging South Fork and different things like that. There was never anything like this brutal later in the series. And this is probably my least, well, not probably, this is my least favorite episode of the miniseries. The second episode is like this one is very different from the rest of the series, but it's got a lot of really interesting, almost accidentally funny parts to it, like the disco dance and different stuff like that. But this is different in a very, and again, I keep using the word brutal, I know, but this is different in a brutal way. And here we go. And this again goes back to Pam being kind of the central figure of the show. She's the one that figures out what to say to maybe put an end to all this before Jock and Bobby even get there. She comes up with the fact that, you told me that to Cooper that he had told Pam that Luther's wife was always out looking for a good time, and that maybe that's a big part of the problem. She's not just some innocent that JR took advantage of. It's funny how Bobby's coat looks purple when they're outside. It doesn't really even look leather. And here we go with Cooper again being like the real maniac. I mean, no matter what the truth of the matter is, Cooper wants to go through with all this just because he likes the idea of raping Lucy. I'd forgotten all about Ray. I'm surprised they didn't show like a scene of Ray kind of struggling in the kitchen to remind us he was there. I'd kind of lost track of him. And there you go with Pam standing up, kind of being heroic again. And you get the feeling that, I mean, I'm sure she would have taken advantage of a situation to get out of it if she could, but you kind of think Pam was really going to go with him to save Lucy. But this is definitely very Jock and Bobby Ewing. I mean, I think most people coming into a situation like that, their first instinct would have been to call the police, but Jock and Bobby just come storming in when they have two people with guns and they handle it themselves and call the cops later. Wow, that's going to be a really uncomfortable conversation between Jock and Miss Ellie later. Oh man, I love Jock. he's one of the characters really in the miniseries that he doesn't really change much. I mean, Jock is the same character in the rest of the series as he was in the first 5 episodes, and that's not the case for most of the rest. I mean, I think out of everybody, Jock and Bobby are probably, well, I guess you could say Sue Ellen as well, are probably closest to who they were um, in the regular series as they are now. Well, I wasn't the only one that forgot about Ray. The rest of the family did too. No one's even bothered to go back and check on him. He's limping into the living room. Yeah, see, this is really horrible to have Sue Ellen on the floor like that. Man, well, you'd have so much adrenaline, you wouldn't know what to do with yourself after something like that. Probably the best scene of this episode right there, and there's no dialogue at all. When you think about it, Jr. actually says very little during this entire episode. He's in most of the scenes, but he says almost nothing the entire time. And I'm not really sure what message they're trying to send here as far as the writers and director and everyone go. Is it just that, you know, JR is a slime and realizes he's kind of slimy here and he's brought this on the family, or he's just to feel bad that he's kind of been left all alone, or it's just an odd episode all around. Again, it's not, not a bad episode necessarily, just one that does not at all, in my opinion, fit in with the rest of the series, and it's yeah, it's so uncomfortable at times. It makes it not a lot of fun to watch. But there you have it. We will be back soon with the final episode of the pilot miniseries, which has the first Ewing barbecue and some pretty significant events that, unlike a lot of what we've seen so far, actually carry over into the main series. But I'll have that posted hopefully sooner rather than later, and then I've got some other ideas about some other videos to do some commentary on. I'm thinking about doing one about Jeffrey McDonald and the Fatal Vision case. I've got a copy of the television movie Fatal Vision. If you're not familiar with that, you can easily find all kinds of information about the Jeffrey McDonald case. But it's something I've been interested in um, since I was a kid, since I first saw the miniseries on television. But I think that might be next after we finish Dallas. But of course, like I said, we have one more Dallas episode to go in the miniseries, and we will finish that up soon. If you have any comments or any suggestions for other things for us to take a look at, feel free to subscribe and comment and list your ideas in the comment section. And I will see you again soon. Thanks a lot.